This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to explore the Acer Aspire R7. This is a very unusual product. In fact, they've been promoting it along with the new Star Trek movie because it is awfully strange and futuristic. 15.6-inch machine, full HD display. Looks like a normal hinge, but it moves. It's nice and stiff, so we get a whole lot of weird things going on. Now, do you have a use for that? Maybe, maybe not, but actually it's nice because you can bring it closer to you. Flip it back to kiosk mode. You can use it sort of like the Sony Vaio Duo and just put it here. Keyboard, easier to touch. Or you can actually use it like a laptop with, notice the trackpad back there, a little bit weird. We're going to look at it now. Well, say what you want about Windows 8, but it certainly has made for some innovative risk-taking designs. Certainly Asus has been one of the most innovative, but Acer, they're taking chances too now, especially with the Aspire R7. They've made a big deal out of marketing this initially, doing the whole Star Trek tie-in, all that kind of thing, and you know it does look like something out of Star Trek. So you take a look at it. This is different, isn't it? This is the lid of your computer right here, 15.6-inch machine, 5.3 pounds, so fairly light, Ultrabook style internals here. And you've got this little, well, strange area here. You feel like you should put some breath mints in there or a tie clip, I don't know. But the reason it's there is because this is a big moving hinge. And it's a nice looking thing, too. Nice brushed metal right here. The rest of it is a combination of plastic and metal. But classy looking design, very clean hinge. We've seen all sorts of hinges, particularly the Sony Vaio Duo, which was a great convertible Windows machine, but it had a pretty ugly exposed hinge mechanism here. Toshiba with their 925 convertible, also kind of an ugly hinge. This is just very clean looking. I mean, this looks like home decor, doesn't it? So there's nothing iffy showing here. There's nothing ugly. There's no wires. Nice. Very smooth, yet very stiff. They call this their easel hinge. It's basically a pun on the word easel as what artists use. And see, no matter which way you look at it, it's nice, it's clean, it's sturdy, it's well made. And why does it do all these weird things? Well, it has a big old touch screen on it, and using this with Windows 8 and touch, it makes it versatile, not unlike the Lenovo Yoga 13, which is certainly a little bit of a risk taker there in terms of design. This guy has even more positions. Now, this seems odd. Why would you want it this way? That's because if we turn it around, you'll see that it's in presentation or kiosk mode. So if we turn it around, here we have something not unlike the Asus Tai Chi. If you remember that, that was one that had a display on both sides of the display panel. This one sticks with one, and in some ways it's a lot more practical because this is less heavy. You don't have two displays going on over here. Less expensive to manufacture as well. And because the hinge is adjustable, you can tilt it like that. So it's great for presentations. The next time you're doing something and you're using it like this and somebody says, "Oh, what are you looking at?" You can just go, "Woo!" Flip it over, and it's going to auto-rotate, and there it is, and you can show them whatever it is you're looking at. Certainly it has its uses. Also nice that it gets the keyboard out of the way in front if you just want to kick back and surf the web or maybe watch a movie, something like that. But wait, there's more. This guy does all sorts of tricks. So, as I said, you can use it like this, which might seem funny, but sometimes you just want to bring the display up closer, especially because this guy functions in tablet mode, right? You can see it's glossy. We're reflecting things here. That is a drawback, but you've got it sitting on the coffee table, say, or something like that. You just want to bring it up closer to make it easier to touch the screen. You can do that, and you can use it at any variety of angles over here, and it's going to work. So really not bad. It's pretty clever stuff, especially for $9.99. And as mentioned, you can also do it like this. Now this makes a lot of sense because honestly you don't need the mouse so much, the trackpad rather, because you can touch the screen. This brings the touch screen closer so you're not reaching across a 15.6-inch notebook just to reach your target here. I would have liked it if they took it one step further like the Sony Vaio Duo 11, which puts a little eraser stick track point pointer in the keyboard to give you a little something just in case you're having trouble touching small UI elements on the screen there, but that is what it is. While we're looking at the keyboard, it's a nice enough keyboard. It's backlit with white backlight, very even, very effective, also fairly reliable in its behavior. Large enough, 15.6-inch machine right here, and we have a fairly standard layout. FN key up here, you have to hit the FN key to control your multimedia, and over here is your brightness and your volume on our little arrow key area. A little sculpted down to make it comfortable. Low key travel though, because this is overall a fairly thin machine, so you're getting something just a little bit better than your average Ultrabook level of travel here. Not bad to type on, no trampolining, really firm, nicely well put together. machine right there, but not super duper on travel. The other thing that's going to be weird is there's obviously no wrist rest area over here, so you're going to be resting on the table or whatever you have when you type. I don't find that to be super duper comfy. But if you want to see something even more uncomfortable, check it out. If you put it in full laptop mode right here, this is a controversial thing about this design. I think everything else pretty much everybody's going to like. Here it is. You can float this up. By the way, you can see you can just bring it down if you want like that, snap it fully into place. Here's your trackpad. This is an Elan trackpad. It's pretty decent. I find sometimes it's a little bit flaky the way some of these Windows 8 trackpads still are for single, but not for multi-touch. There it works well. But the uncomfortable thing is obviously reaching this far to use your trackpad. It's a little bit weird. I think they're counting mostly on you actually using it in the mode where you've got the screen pulled up over here. So there it is. If that bugs you, the fact that this is essentially a backwards design, well, yeah. But since it's touchscreen, honestly, most of the time I just don't even use that trackpad. I just bring the screen forward. And when it's like that, absolutely fine. No problems. Touchscreen, quickly accessible. Bring it into our Windows 8 UI with live tiles right here. Responsive touchscreen. Again, it's full HD, 1920 by 1080, and Acer doesn't say what the screen technology is. It certainly looks like an IPS display. This is a gorgeous display. It's also quite bright. Awesome viewing angles all the way up to the side. It still looks very sharp, very clear, and colors aren't doing any shifting. It's a real pleasure to use. So it makes certainly a very nice multimedia companion. Combine that with the fact that on the bottom we've got these nice stereo speakers right here, boldly labeled. Dolby Digital Home Theater. Good sound, incredibly loud actually. For a 15.6-inch notebook, it is shockingly loud. It's not super duper full in terms of bass response. You know, there's no subwoofer here, but it's fairly decent. It's certainly very loud. A family could watch a movie together with this guy. And let's talk about the position that it's in right now. Rotate that screen. This is your tablet mode. It does not fold exactly flat. You see right here, there's a little bit of an angle because the hinge is actually in the way. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing because it tilts it up just a little bit to make it good to use. Now, obviously, it's not the most practical thing to carry around in this kind of tablet position because it is a bit open, but given the fact that it is 5.3 pounds and 15.6 inches, I think Acer really designs this for home use more than anything else. Or you could use it in the office, but the idea is that you might be taking this from the bedroom to the den to your kitchen to something like that, but you're not going to be carrying this around with you everywhere. It's not an ultra-portable 11.6-inch convertible. And yes, for those of you who are wondering, see, you obviously can use it in portrait mode. The accelerometer works just fine for that. I wouldn't want to hold 5.3 pounds up to do that, but I suppose you could try to find a way of, well, maybe propping this guy up. There really isn't a super stable way, but you can kind of V it up. No, the accelerometer's gotten confused, though. Once you start opening it up, it thinks that you're going to want to use it in a landscape mode, but once we close it, it goes back to portrait. So there's also that to deal with. It's got some sensors inside. And we have a fairly healthy selection of ports on this because it is a 15.6-inch machine. We have room for that. This here, that looks sort of like a Thunderbolt connector. This is called the Acer converter port, and they're supposed to make dongle adapters that are not included but are optional for things like LAN connection, display, that sort of thing. Full-size HDMI, two USB 3.0 ports right here, your combo mic headphone jack. This little slit here is actually an outlet for the speaker, which continues on down below as we saw. Ventilation grills on the back here, flanking the hinge. And on this side, we have power connector. Comes with a fairly portable brick-style charger. Another audio port right here. This is your volume control. This is the power button. This is a really stupid place for the power button. Every time I pick it up, I accidentally hit this very soft touch power button. Wish it wasn't there. I know they wanted to put it on the side in case you were using it in tablet mode, but oi. USB 2.0 port, and this is our SD card slot here. And there's a lock slot there. Now if we look on the bottom, it's got a soft touch black finish on here, which is pretty nice. Rubber feet, some more ventilation going on, not too much. A lot of torque screws on the bottom here. Now, I was dying to take this apart because this guy should be fairly upgradable on the internals, and I took all the torque screws off, and it felt like something was holding it. I didn't want to tear it apart, so I haven't fully removed it, but For specs on this machine, you have a 500 gig spinning conventional hard drive in here, 5400 RPM, with a 24 gig caching SSD drive, and 6 gigs of DDR3 RAM. It looks like 4 gigs are soldered onto the motherboard, and there's one standard SO-DIMM slot, so you can go to a maximum of 12 gigs. So, love to rip this open for a full review. Hopefully I will, so we can look at the internals in there, but you should be able to play with your hard drives and your RAM, that kind of thing, given that architecture. As you can see here, we have an Intel Core i5 3337U CPU. That's the refresh of the 3rd generation Ivy Bridge CPU, so it's running at 1.8 gigahertz. A good performer there. So though this is a 15-inch notebook, you're not getting a full mobile CPU. You're getting the Ultrabook version. The good news for that is it's relatively cool, it's relatively quiet, and battery life is decent despite the fact that it's fairly thin and it doesn't have a very large battery inside. For our Windows Experience Index, you can see here we scored 6.9 for the processor, which is pretty much standard for that CPU, 7.2 for the RAM. That tells me that they've managed a dual channel configuration there, which is interesting because they have different capacities for the soldered on versus the socketed RAM there. 4.8 for desktop graphics performance. That's middling to average there for Core i5 ULVs with Intel HD 4000 integrated graphics. 6.2 for 3D graphics. Primary hard disk is 5.9, and that's based basically on your spinning conventional hard drive there, so that's par for the course. Speaking of Intel HD 4000 graphics, that's the only option here. We do not have an option for dedicated graphics. Given the $9.99 price point and the fancy hinge and all that kind of stuff, I think that's a fair thing. Though it would be tempting to actually be able to use this for some really heavy-duty gaming on here. You can play less demanding games like Left 4 Dead 2, Civ 5 runs on this just fine, but forget Bioshock Infinite. Not really. You don't want to go there. And as you can see right here, we have 10 points of multi-touch. That means you crazy finger painters and massive multiplayer air hockey folks on screen. Well, you can use lots of fingers on here. It works just fine. And as I said before, it's quite responsive to touch. And this is fairly stable. That's why they made it such a stiff hinge. So it doesn't bounce around a whole lot. I'm hitting it harder than I normally would, actually, at this point. And it's pretty darn stable. We have a capacitive button right here to switch back to the Metro UI right here with our live tile interface. And they've got a decent amount of preloaded stuff on here, some of which is actually useful. You have your Acer webcam application for this. Has a 720p webcam, works just fine. We have Amazon on here. We have Kindle on here. Skype, I think most people are going to want. A bunch of Acer utilities to maintain the machine. That's just fine. We've got Spotify preloaded on here. Microsoft Office trial. It's got a 2-month trial for McAfee Internet Security on board, Netflix, Cha-Cha. You can see all the stuff that's on here, and you can remove anything that you don't want, though you probably want to keep things like the Acer Live Update application to keep the drivers up to date. As a multimedia machine, this thing really rocks. I have to say, very nice display, really sharp, really colorful, and, like I said, pretty loud. So let's check out some video here and see how it sounds and how it looks. So we'll try our 1080p movie trailer. Good match for the 1080p screen.
It stands 12 feet tall.
Nice sound, huh? And this is at 70% volume.
Sharp claws. Warriors! His face scarred with one dead eye. I drew my sword.
Chomp! Dad's leg was clean off.
Oh, that's my favorite part.
In the
So you've got nice colors there. Obviously, pretty darn good audio. Fairly accurate colors, too. It's just a very pleasant display. Definitely nice for multimedia there. The machine has dual-band Broadcom Wi-Fi 802.11b, and since it's Broadcom and not Intel brand, that means that there's no Intel Wi-Fi wireless display. However, you can use that HDMI cable with your home AV theater gear if you want to. It has Broadcom Bluetooth 4.0 high speed as well. The battery inside is a 4-cell battery, 3560 milliamp per hour. That's not really a very huge battery, especially given the size of the display. So Acer claims that it lasts 4 hours. Now, usually when manufacturers make a claim about battery life, you can expect to maybe get 2/3 of that. In this case, it actually has been lasting us about 4 hours with average use, streaming some video, doing web, doing email, doing MS Office, a couple of Photoshop sessions, that kind of thing. So battery life is not too atrocious. And given the size of the machine, I think they really do expect you probably to not be using this as an ultra portable on the go, and you're probably going to be near electricity. In terms of performance, on PC Mark 7, it scored very well. It did 3981. Now that's pretty good for something that has a conventional spinning hard drive. That caching SSD helps only so much when it comes to synthetic benchmarks. So a pretty good performer there. For 3D Mark 11, using the so-called performance setting, which is the middle setting running at 720p, it scored a 646, which is about typical for Intel HD 4000 graphics on the Ivy Bridge architecture. So now we're going to test out the live tile game. This is Gun for Hire. This is available for free download, and you can see it runs absolutely just fine. Really nice sharp screen, right? So, and quite loud. We brought it down to 36% volume. It's still loud. I'm going to drop it some more, in fact. So, nice 3D game, works fine. Looks sharp. Touch controls work great on this. So there's a little gaming on the Acer Aspire R7. So this is a standard Windows 8 64-bit computer right here. We're back in desktop mode, as you can see here. So anything you can do with a Windows computer, you can do with this. We're using IE right now, and we've got our pinch zooming mode going on. I have the desktop scaling set to 100%, so it's not doing any scaling, but I've moved the browser up to 125% to make things a little bit more readable because text is a little teeny. And by the way, this also comes with Dragon Assistant, the folks at Nuance who make voice dictation software. It's pretty neat, and it goes to sleep when you're on battery power, but you can bring it back to life by hitting the Control key twice. Search Google.
What are you searching for?
Apple pie.
Here are the Google results for Apple.
Well, okay, it doesn't always hear you real well unless you're right in front of it. Obviously, I can't be directly in front of it right now because I would block your view of it. But you get the idea. It does voice commands. You can tell it to launch applications, all of that kind of stuff. And of course, Windows has voice command and dictation built in as well, but that's a fun little thing. So who is this guy for? Well, it's for you twisty people. No, but seriously, I think this is a really fun home computer, particularly because it is so useful in a variety of settings. You can prop it up, you can use it more easily like that, you can flip it over to share something with your friends, you can bring it closer to the keyboard so you don't have to reach over. You can put it back in laptop mode. The only drawback is for those of you who plan to use this as a traditional laptop is the fact that the trackpad is going to be back here. So I think really this is for those of you who really intend to use the touchscreen and probably forego the use of the trackpad. Certainly it's a well-made machine, it's attractive enough, decent materials on here, very nice performance for the price as well. So that's the Acer Aspire R7. It's available now exclusive to Best Buy at the moment, $999. And actually it's quite a machine for the money. I'm surprised. Usually machines that do have a lot of neat tricks and things like that to them, innovative designs, and a full HD display, well, they usually cost a lot of money. This one doesn't. It's pretty nice. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to visit our website for the full review, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.